A paramedic rescued a wounded stranger from a snowstorm, never asking his name. By morning, 500 SUVs surrounded her cabin. The man she'd saved was a Mafia boss, and she'd just become the most protected woman in America. The windshield wipers could barely keep up with the snow. Sophia Carter gripped the steering wheel tighter, her knuckles white as her 12-year-old Jeep crawled along the mountain road. The heater was broken again, and her breath came out in frosty clouds. After a 14-hour shift at the county hospital, all she wanted was her cabin, a hot shower, and 8 hours of sleep. The storm had other plans. She was 3 miles from home when she saw them, headlights, faint and crooked, pointing at an angle that made her stomach drop. They weren't on the road. They were off it, halfway down the embankment, barely visible through the whiteout. "Damn it," Sophia muttered, already pulling over. She should call it in. Let the state troopers handle it. That was protocol. That was smart. But the nearest trooper was 40 minutes away on a good day, and this wasn't a good day. The temperature was dropping fast, well below zero. Nobody survived long in weather like this. Sophia killed the engine, grabbed her emergency kit from the back seat, and stepped into the blizzard. The cold hit her like a physical blow. The wind screamed through the pine trees, throwing snow in her face hard enough to sting. She clicked on her flashlight and started down the slope, boots sinking deep into fresh powder. The vehicle was a black Mercedes SUV, expensive and totaled. The front end had wrapped around a tree, the hood crumpled like tinfoil. Steam rose from the engine, already turning to ice. The driver's side door hung open. "Hello," Sophia shouted over the wind. "Can anyone hear me?" Nothing. She moved closer, sweeping her flashlight across the interior. Blood on the dashboard, blood on the seats, and slumped against the passenger door, barely visible in the shadows, a man. Sophia's training kicked in instantly. She scrambled around to the passenger side, wrenched open the door, and dropped to her knees beside him. He was big, maybe 6'2", dressed in an expensive suit that was now soaked with melting snow and blood. His face was pale, lips turning blue. She pressed 2 fingers against his throat. Pulse. Weak, but there. "Sir, can you hear me? I'm a paramedic. I'm going to help you." His eyes fluttered open, dark, unfocused. He tried to speak, but only a groan came out. Sophia did a rapid assessment. Gunshot wound to the left shoulder, another to his side. Fresh. Maybe an hour old. Severe blood loss. Early stages of hypothermia. Without immediate treatment, he'd be dead in 30 minutes. She reached for her phone to call for an ambulance, then stopped. There was a gun in his shoulder holster, another one on the floor of the car. And when her flashlight swept the back seat, she saw a duffel bag, half open, stuffed with cash. Her breath caught. This man wasn't some tourist who lost control in the snow. He was running from something, or someone. The smart thing to do was back away. Call the cops. Let them handle it. But Sophia had taken an oath, and she'd never let anyone die when she could save them. She made her decision in 3 seconds. "Okay, buddy," she said, already unzipping her medical kit. "This is going to hurt, but you're coming with me." She worked fast, packed the wounds with gauze, tied pressure bandages tight enough to slow the bleeding. The man barely reacted, drifting in and out of consciousness. When she tried to move him, he was dead weight, easily 200 pounds of muscle and expensive suit. "Come on," Sophia grunted, hooking her arms under his shoulders. "Work with me here." Somehow, she got him up the embankment. Her Jeep was still running, heat blasting from the vents. She shoved him into the passenger seat, buckled him in, and threw her kid in the back. 3 miles had never felt longer. The man's head lolled against the window. Every few seconds, he'd mumble something, fragments that didn't make sense. "Betrayed. Vincenzo, don't trust." "Save your strength," Sophia told him, eyes fixed on the road. "We're almost there." Her cabin appeared through the trees like a mirage, a small, weathered structure with a metal roof and smoke rising from the chimney. She'd left the fire going. Thank God for small favors. She pulled right up to the porch, killed the engine, and hauled the stranger inside. Her living room became an operating theater. She cleared the coffee table, laid him out flat, and started cutting away his shirt. The gunshot wounds were worse than she'd thought. The shoulder wound had gone clean through, but the one in his side was lodged deep. She could feel the bullet grinding against bone. "This is way above my pay grade," Sophia muttered, prepping her instruments. But she'd done field surgery before. Car accidents. Farm equipment disasters. Once, a logging accident that would have made a trauma surgeon faint. You learn to improvise in a town 3 hours from the nearest hospital. She worked for 2 hours straight, extracted the bullet, cleaned the wounds, stitched him up with the precision of someone who'd done it 100 times. Started in 4 drip with the saline bags she kept for emergencies. When she finally stepped back, her hands were shaking. The stranger was stabilized, breathing steadier, color returning to his face. Sophia collapsed into her armchair, adrenaline draining out of her all at once. She stared at the unconscious man on her coffee table, really seeing him for the first time. He wasn't just big. He was built like someone who'd spent years in the gym, or the kind of life where you fought to survive. His face was sharp, handsome in a dangerous way, with a scar cutting through his left eyebrow. His hands were rough, knuckles scarred. And his watch. Sophia noticed it now, peeking out from beneath the 4 line.
À Patek Philippe.
She'd seen one once in a magazine. They started at 100 grand. "Who the hell are you?" she whispered. Outside, the storm howled. Inside, the fire crackled. And on Sophia Carter's coffee table, a man who should have been dead slept on, secrets buried in his blood-soaked suit. She had no idea that by sunrise, her entire life would change forever. Sophia didn't sleep. Every 30 minutes, she checked his vitals.
Pulse.
Temperature. Respiration rate. The fever hit around 2 in the morning, his body's response to the trauma and blood loss. She packed ice from outside around his neck and wrists, forcing the temperature down degree by degree. At 3 a.m., she noticed the frostbite on his left hand. 3 fingers, turning black at the tips. She'd been so focused on the gunshots that she'd missed it. "Damn it," she whispered, already moving. She filled her largest pot with lukewarm water, not hot, never hot, that would destroy the tissue, and submerged his hand. The stranger's eyes shot open, and he jerked away with a growl that sounded more animal than human. "Easy." Sophia grabbed his wrist, firm but careful. "You have frostbite. If I don't treat this, you'll lose the fingers." His eyes locked on hers. Even through the fever and pain, they were sharp, calculating. The eyes of someone used to making life-or-death decisions in seconds. Where his voice was gravel. "Where am I?" "My cabin." About 40 miles south of the Canadian border, Sophia kept his hand in the water, watching his face for signs of shock. "I found you in a wreck. You were bleeding out." He tried to sit up.
Failed.
His jaw clenched with frustration. "Stay down," Sophia ordered. "You've got 2 bullets in you. Well, had 2 bullets. I pulled them out, but you've lost a lot of blood. Move too fast and you'll tear the stitches." "My car. Totaled. Wrapped around a pine tree. You're lucky to be alive." Something flickered across his face. Not relief. Something darker. "Lucky," he repeated, like the word tasted wrong. Sophia studied him as she worked. Up close, she could see more scars. A thin line along his jaw, another across his collarbone. This man had been hurt before. Many times. "What's your name?" she asked. He didn't answer. Just stared at the ceiling, breathing hard. "Okay. Mystery man it is." Sophia pulled his hand from the water, patted it dry with gentle precision. "You were mumbling in your sleep. Something about betrayal. Someone named Vincenzo." His whole body went rigid. "Don't trust anyone," he muttered.
Can't.
"Can't trust." "Well, you're going to have to trust me for now," Sophia said, wrapping his fingers in clean bandages. Because without medical attention, you've got maybe 48 hours before infection kills you. He turned his head to look at her, really look at her. Sophia felt exposed under that gaze, like he was reading every secret she'd ever kept. "Why?" he asked finally. "Why what?" "Why help me? You saw the guns. The money." His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "You know what I am." Sophia sat back, meeting his eyes. "I know you're human. I know you're hurt. That's enough." For a long moment he said nothing. Then, so quietly she almost missed it, "You're either very brave or very stupid." "I've been called both." Sophia stood, checking the bag. "Get some rest. We'll talk more when you're not running 102 fever." But sleep didn't come easy for either of them. The stranger drifted in and out, trapped in fever dreams that made him thrash and shout. Sophia had to hold him down twice to keep him from ripping out the four. Each time, he fought her with surprising strength, even half-conscious. "They're coming," he gasped during one episode, eyes wide but unseeing.
Vincenzo.
"He knows. He knows." "Nobody knows you're here," Sophia said firmly. "You're safe." "Safe," he laughed, bitter and broken. "There's no such thing." By 5 a.m., the fever finally broke. The stranger fell into genuine sleep, his breathing deep and even. Sophia allowed herself to relax for the first time in hours. She made coffee, terrible, instant coffee that tasted like mud, and stood at the window, watching the storm. It was still coming down hard, snow piling up against the cabin walls. The road would be impassable for days. They were alone out here, completely isolated. Sophia's eyes drifted to the duffel bag she'd brought in from the car. She tried not to look at it, tried to respect his privacy. But curiosity was a powerful thing. She unzipped it slowly.
Cash.
More cash than she'd ever seen in her life. Bundled in neat stacks, wrapped in plastic. She did a rough count, had to be at least $200,000. Maybe more. Under the money, a passport. She flipped it open. The photo showed her stranger, same sharp features, same dangerous eyes. But the name was Italian.
Marco Santini.
Something about it felt wrong, like a costume that didn't quite fit. She dug deeper. Found another passport. Different name. Same face. Then another. Looking for something. Sophia spun around. The stranger was awake, watching her from the couch. His face was pale but alert, eyes hard as stone. Sophia's heart hammered. "I was just checking to see what kind of criminal you saved." He tried to sit up, wincing. Smart. Most people don't think that far ahead. Sophia closed the bag, pulse racing. "Are you going to tell me the truth? About who you are?" He stared at her for a long moment. Then he looked away. "The less you know, the safer you are." "I think we're past that point," Sophia said. "I pulled 2 bullets out of you. I know someone tried to kill you. I know you're running from something." Not something, his voice was soft, deadly. "Someone?" Before Sophia could respond, a sound cut through the early morning silence. Engines. Multiple engines. Growing louder. The stranger's face went white.
No.
"No, it's too soon." Sophia rushed to the window and pulled back the curtain. Her blood turned to ice. Coming up the snow-covered road, one after another, were black SUVs.
Dozens of them.
Moving in perfect formation like a military convoy. And they were all heading straight for her cabin. "Who are they?" Sophia whispered. The stranger closed his eyes, jaw clenched. When he spoke, his voice was resigned. "My men." Sophia counted 12 SUVs before she stopped counting. They rolled in like a black tide, filling her small clearing, headlights cutting through the pre-dawn darkness. More kept coming, parking in formation, blocking every possible exit. The sound of engines was deafening, rumbling through the cabin walls. "Your men?" Sophia's voice cracked. "How many men do you have?" The stranger tried to stand, swayed, and caught himself against the arm of the couch. His face was gray with pain, but his expression had changed. The vulnerability was gone, replaced by something harder. Something commanding. "Don't go outside," he said. "Stay behind me. No matter what happens. Behind you, you can barely stand." The front door exploded inward. Sophia screamed. Armed men poured into her cabin, 6, 8, 10 of them, dressed in black tactical gear, assault rifles raised. Red laser sights danced across the walls, across her chest, painting her in deadly light. "Freeze. Hands up. Don't move." On the ground now. Sophia's hands shot up, her mind blank with terror. This was it. She was going to die in her own living room, killed by whoever this man had brought to her door. "Stand down." The stranger's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Every gun instantly lowered. The men froze, staring at him in shock. One of them, a massive man with a shaved head and a scar running down his neck, stepped forward.
Boss.
His voice was hoarse with disbelief. "Oh my God, boss," we thought. "I'm alive," Marcus, the stranger, the boss, was gripping the couch so hard his knuckles were white, but his voice remained steady. Controlled. "Lower your weapons. All of you." They obeyed instantly. Sophia watched in disbelief as 10 armed men lowered their rifles like children being scolded by their father. The stranger raised one hand, pointing at Sophia. "This woman saved my life. She pulled me from a wreck, treated my wounds, and kept me alive through the night." His dark eyes swept across his men, cold and absolute. "Nobody touches her. Nobody threatens her. She is under my protection. Is that understood?" "Yes, sir," they answered in unison. Sophia's legs felt like water.
What?
What is happening? More men were pouring into the cabin now, some carrying medical equipment, others sweeping the rooms with military precision. One man in a suit was barking orders into a phone. Another was setting up what looked like a communication station on her kitchen table. The big man, Marcus, holstered his weapon and approached the stranger. "Sir, we need to get you to a hospital. You're bleeding."
Fine.
The woman's a paramedic. She knows what she's doing. "With respect, boss, you've been missing for 8 hours. We found your car down the mountain." Marcus's voice dropped. "There was so much blood. We thought you were dead." "Someone wanted me dead." The stranger's jaw tightened. They came close. A new figure entered the cabin, a man in his 50s, silver-haired, wearing an expensive overcoat. His eyes went straight to the stranger, and Sophia saw something flash across his face. Relief? Or something else? "Lorenzo," the man said. "Thank God you're alive. Lorenzo." The name hit Sophia like a punch to the gut. Lorenzo. She knew that name. Everyone in the northern states knew that name. Lorenzo Vitali. The stories flooded back, news reports, whispered rumors, front-page headlines. The most powerful crime family on the East Coast. Drug trafficking, money laundering, illegal arms deals. Bodies that turned up in rivers. Witnesses who disappeared. A man so feared that even the FBI handled him with kid gloves. And he was standing in her living room, bleeding on her couch. "Oh my God," Sophia whispered. "Oh my God, you're Lorenzo," because that's who he was, that's who he'd been all along. Turned to look at her. His expression was unreadable. "Lorenzo Vitali," he confirmed. "And you just saved the life of the most dangerous man on the eastern seaboard." Sophia backed up until she hit the wall. Her whole body was shaking. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know who you were." "I know," Lorenzo's voice was almost gentle. "If you had, you would have let me die in the snow." The silver-haired man stepped forward, his eyes on Sophia now. Assessing. Calculating. "She knows your location. She knows you were vulnerable. That's a security risk, Lorenzo." "Her name is Dr. Carter," Lorenzo said sharply. "And she's not a risk. She's a civilian who showed mercy to a stranger." "Mercy?" The man's lip curled. "In our world, Mercy is a weakness that gets exploited. In our world, Vincenzo, loyalty is bought with respect. Lorenzo's voice hardened. She earned mine.
Vincenzo.
Sophia's breath caught. That was the name Lorenzo had mumbled in his delirium. The name he'd said not to trust. Vincenzo's cold eyes locked on her. Nevertheless, she can't simply walk away from this. She's seen too much. Knows too much. Then she stays, Lorenzo said. Under guard. Under my protection. Stays. Sophia found her voice. I'm not staying anywhere. This is my home, and I want all of you out.
Now.
Marcus actually smiled at that. A grim, respectful smile. She's got fire, boss. I noticed, Lorenzo said dryly. Then, to Sophia, I understand this is overwhelming. But until we figure out who ordered the hit on me, everyone connected to my survival is in danger. That includes you. I didn't ask to be part of this. Neither did I, Lorenzo met her eyes. But someone betrayed me last night. Someone close enough to know my route, my schedule, my security detail. They ambushed my convoy, killed my drivers, and left me to freeze to death in the snow. His voice dropped. And now they know I survived, which means they'll come looking. The weight of his words settled over the cabin like snow. So, what are you saying? Sophia asked quietly. I'm saying you're in this now. Whether you like it or not. Lorenzo gestured to the men filling her small cabin. These are my soldiers. Until the threat is eliminated, they don't leave. And neither do you. Sophia looked around at the armed men, the tactical equipment, her small cabin transformed into some kind of war room. 24 hours ago, her biggest problem had been a broken heater. Now she was a prisoner in her own home, surrounded by Mafia soldiers, at the mercy of a man she'd saved from death. A man who looked at her now with something between gratitude and warning. Welcome to my world, Dr. Carter, Lorenzo Vitali said softly. I'm sorry you're in it. Outside, more SUVs continued to arrive. Sophia counted them through the window. 20, 30, 40. By the time the sun finally rose over the mountains, there were over 500 vehicles surrounding her tiny cabin. And Sophia Carter realized with absolute certainty that her life would never be the same. By noon, Sophia's cabin was unrecognizable. Her kitchen table was covered with laptops and encrypted phones. Her living room had become a command center, with maps spread across every surface. Men in tactical gear rotated shifts, guarding every window, every door. Someone had installed surveillance cameras on the perimeter. Another team was sweeping for bugs. Sophia stood in the corner of what used to be her sanctuary, watching strangers dismantle her life. This is insane, she muttered. It's necessary, Marcus said, not unkindly. He'd been assigned as her personal guard, a mountain of a man who followed her everywhere, even to the bathroom. He waited outside, but still. The boss's enemies don't play nice, document. They find out you saved him, they'll use you to get to him. I'm a paramedic from nowhere, Montana.
I'm nobody.
You stopped being nobody the second you pulled him from that wreck. Sophia watched Lorenzo across the room. He'd refused to lie down, despite her medical advice. Instead, he sat in her armchair, her favorite reading chair, conducting business like he was in a boardroom instead of a cabin with bullet holes in his shoulder. Men approached him one by one, bowing their heads before speaking. Literally bowing, like he was royalty. Mr. Vitali, we've secured the perimeter. Sir, the supply convoy will arrive within the hour. Boss, Chicago is asking for orders. Lorenzo gave commands with quiet authority, his voice never rising above conversational level. Yet every man hung on his words like gospel. When he nodded, they moved. When he frowned, they scrambled to fix whatever had displeased him. It was terrifying and fascinating in equal measure. He always like this? Sophia asked Marcus. Like what? Like a king holding court. Marcus smiled. The boss earned his throne, document. Every inch of it. These men would die for him. Most of them nearly have. And Vincenzo? Sophia watched the silver-haired man conferring with two others near the door. What about him? Marcus's expression darkened. Vincenzo's been with the family for 30 years. The boss's father's right-hand man. But lately he trailed off, seeming to realize he'd said too much. Lately what? Nothing. Forget I said anything. But Sophia didn't forget. She watched Vincenzo watching Lorenzo, and she saw something cold in those eyes. Something calculating. Around 3 p.m., Sophia finally had enough. I need to check his wounds, she announced, grabbing her medical kit. The room went silent. Every head turned toward her. The boss is in a meeting, one of the lieutenants said stiffly. The boss is bleeding through his bandages, Sophia shot back. Unless you want him to die from infection, I suggest you let me do my job. Lorenzo raised one hand, dismissing the men around him. Let her through. Sophia knelt beside his chair, carefully cutting away the blood-soaked bandages. The shoulder wound looked good, clean, no signs of infection. But the side wound was inflamed, the stitches pulling. You need to rest, she said quietly. You're pushing too hard. Can't afford to rest. Not now. You can't afford to collapse either. Sophia cleaned the wound with antiseptic, ignoring his sharp intake of breath. Your body needs time to heal. My body will heal when my enemies are dead. Sophia looked up at him. This close, she could see the exhaustion carved into his face, the dark circles under his eyes. He was running on pure willpower. Why? She asked softly. Why push yourself like this? Lorenzo was quiet for a moment. Then, because weakness gets you killed in my world. The second they smell blood, the shark circle. You were shot twice and left to die. I'd say that's already happened. Which is why I need to show strength now. His eyes met hers. I appreciate your concern, Dr. Carter. But I know what I'm doing. Sophia finished bandaging him in silence. As she packed up her kit, Lorenzo caught her wrist.
Thank you, he said.
For last night.
For this.
I haven't properly thanked you. His hand was warm, grip gentle despite the calluses. Sophia felt her breath catch. You're welcome, she managed. I mean it, Lorenzo's voice dropped lower, meant only for her. You could have left me to die. Most people would have. Hell, most people should have. I'm not most people. No, something like respect flickered in his dark eyes. You're not. He released her wrist, and Sophia stood, suddenly aware of every eye in the room watching them. That evening, she tried to leave. Not escape. She wasn't stupid enough to think she could slip past trained soldiers. She just wanted air.
Space.
5 minutes where she wasn't surrounded by armed men and criminal enterprise. She made it to the porch before Marcus intercepted her. Can't let you go out there, Doc. I just need a walk. 10 minutes. Too dangerous. Dangerous? Sophia laughed bitterly. I'm in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by 500 armed men. What could possibly? Snipers, Marcus said bluntly.
Drones.
Long-range surveillance. The people who tried to kill the boss, they've got resources. Military-grade equipment. You step outside that perimeter, you're a target. The reality of it hit her like cold water. I'm a prisoner. You're protected. What's the difference? Marcus didn't have an answer for that. Sophia returned inside, fury and fear warring in her chest. She found Lorenzo still in command of her living room, still issuing orders, still playing king. I want out, she said, loud enough to cut through the conversations. The room went silent again. Lorenzo looked at her, expression unreadable. Excuse me? I want out.
Of this.
All of this. Sophia gestured at the controlled chaos around them. This is my home. My life. I didn't sign up to be your hostage. You're not a hostage. You're a guest. Guests can leave. Lorenzo stood slowly, and despite his injuries, he commanded the space with pure presence. He crossed to her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. You want to leave?
Fine.
I'll have Marcus drive you anywhere you want to go. His voice was soft, dangerous. But understand this, Dr. Carter. The moment you pulled me from that wreck, you became part of my story. The people who tried to kill me, they're already looking for loose ends to tie up, witnesses to eliminate. Sophia's mouth went dry. I won't tell anyone. Doesn't matter.
They'll assume you know something.
They'll come for you anyway. Lorenzo's gaze was intense, searching. Here, surrounded by my men, you're safe. Out there, alone, you're a target waiting to be eliminated. So yes, you can leave. But you'll be dead within 48 hours. The words hung between them like a death sentence. So I'm trapped here, Sophia whispered. For how long? Until we find the traitor. Until the threat is eliminated. Lorenzo's expression softened slightly.
I'm sorry. Truly.
Anyone who saves me becomes a target. It's the cost of showing mercy to a man like me. Sophia stared at him, this dangerous stranger she'd rescued, who now held her life in his hands as surely as she'd held his last night. I hate you, she said quietly. I know. Lorenzo's smile was sad. But you'll stay alive. That's what matters. He turned and walked back to his throne, leaving Sophia standing alone in a cabin full of soldiers, a prisoner in everything but name. Sophia couldn't sleep. It was past midnight, and the cabin was never quiet anymore. Men moved in shifts, boots creaking on the floorboards. Radio chatter crackled from the command center. Every hour, someone reported in from the perimeter. She'd been given her own bedroom. They'd cleared out Lorenzo's men to give her privacy, but the walls were thin. She heard everything. And tonight, she heard things she wasn't supposed to hear. Don't like it. The whole thing stinks. Sophia froze, recognizing Marcus's voice from the hallway outside her door. Keep your voice down. That was another guard younger. What stinks? The ambush. Someone knew exactly where the boss would be. Knew his route, his security detail, everything. Marcus's voice dropped to barely a whisper. That kind of intel doesn't leak by accident. You think it was one of ours. I think somebody wanted him dead. Somebody close. Sophia pressed her ear against the door, her heart pounding. That's crazy. Nobody would betray the boss. He's been different lately, Marcus interrupted. Softer. Talking about legitimate business, about going clean. Some of the old guard, they don't like that. They like things the way they've always been. You mean Vincenzo? Silence. Then Marcus, grim. I didn't say that. And you didn't hear it from me. Their footsteps moved away, but Sophia's mind was racing. Someone inside Lorenzo's organization had tried to kill him, and now that person knew he'd survived. She thought about Vincenzo's cold eyes, the way he'd looked at Lorenzo like a problem to be solved, the way he'd called mercy a weakness. Sophia didn't sleep at all after that. The next morning, the storm hit harder. Wind screamed around the cabin, shaking the walls. Snow fell so thick that Sophia couldn't see past the porch. The temperature dropped to 20 below zero. Roads are completely blocked, one of the lieutenants reported to Lorenzo. State highways closed. Nothing's getting in or out until this blows over. How long? Lorenzo asked. He was sitting up today, looking stronger, but Sophia had seen him wince when he thought no one was watching. Weather Service says 3 days minimum. Could be a week. Lorenzo's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Double the guard rotation. I want eyes on every approach, storm or no storm. Sophia watched from the kitchen, where she was pretending to make coffee.
Trapped.
They were all trapped here together. Lorenzo, his loyal men, and whoever wanted him dead. Dr. Carter. She jumped, nearly dropping the coffee pot. Vincenzo stood in the doorway, his silver hair perfectly styled despite everything. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I didn't mean to startle you. It's fine. Sophia forced herself to stay calm. Did you need something? Just wanted to check on our patient. Vincenzo moved closer, and Sophia fought the urge to step back. Lorenzo speaks highly of your skills. Says you saved his life. I did my job. Your job. Vincenzo's smile widened. A paramedic in the middle of nowhere, perfectly positioned to find our boss bleeding in the snow. Quite a coincidence. Sophia's blood ran cold. What are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. Simply observing that you appeared at a very convenient moment. His eyes were like chips of ice. And now you're here, in the center of our operations, seeing everything, hearing everything. I didn't ask to be here.
No.
But here you are. Vincenzo leaned against the counter, casual but threatening. You know, in our business, we don't believe in coincidences. Every connection is suspect. Every witness is a liability. Lorenzo trusts me. Lorenzo is grateful. There's a difference. Vincenzo's voice dropped. Gratitude fades. But security concerns? Those are permanent. Before Sophia could respond, Marcus appeared in the doorway. Boss wants to see you, Vincenzo. War room.
Now.
Vincenzo straightened, the pleasant mask sliding back into place. Of course, he nodded to Sophia. We'll continue this conversation later, Dr. Carter. He left, and Sophia sagged against the counter, shaking. Marcus lingered. You okay, Doc? He thinks I'm involved somehow. In the attack. Vincenzo thinks everyone's involved in something. It's how he stayed alive this long. Marcus's expression was serious. But between you and me, watch yourself around him. The boss trusts you, but Vincenzo, he doesn't trust anyone. The day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Sophia tried to stay busy, checked Lorenzo's wounds again, reorganized her medical supplies, anything to keep her mind occupied. But she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every time she looked up, someone was staring. The guards. The lieutenants. Vincenzo, most of all. Around 3 p.m., she overheard another conversation. This time, she wasn't even trying to eavesdrop. 2 of Vincenzo's men were talking right outside the bathroom. She knows too much. She's a civilian. She can't be trusted with this kind of exposure. What are you saying? We just get rid of her. I'm saying she's a problem. And problems have a way of disappearing. Sophia stood frozen inside the bathroom, hand over her mouth to keep from making a sound. You'd have to go through the boss. He's made it clear she's protected.
For now.
But the boss is injured. Vulnerable. If something were to happen to him, the voice trailed off meaningfully.
Well.
Things would change. And certain loose ends could be tied up. They moved away, leaving Sophia trembling against the sink. She had to tell Lorenzo. Had to warn him. But when she emerged from the bathroom, Vincenzo was waiting in the hallway. Dr. Carter, his smile was predatory. Taking a break from your medical duties? Yes. Just needed a moment. Of course. This must all be very stressful for you. He stepped closer, blocking her path to the living room. Being trapped here with dangerous men. Never knowing who to trust. I imagine it's quite frightening. Sophia lifted her chin.
Fine.
Are you? Vincenzo tilted his head, studying her like a specimen. You look frightened, doctor. Like you've heard something that disturbed you. I don't know what you mean. Don't you? His voice hardened. These walls are thin. Sound travels. And you seem like the type who listens very carefully. Sophia's heart hammered. If you have something to say to me, I'm saying that curiosity can be dangerous. Especially in our world. Vincenzo leaned in, his breath cold against her ear. You saved Lorenzo's life. Admirable. But staying alive in this house? That requires understanding when to see nothing, hear nothing, and say nothing. Do you understand? It was a threat. Clear and unmistakable. I understand, Sophia whispered. Good, Vincenzo straightened, the pleasant mask returning. I'd hate for something unfortunate to happen to you. Lorenzo would be so disappointed. He walked away, leaving Sophia shaking in the hallway. That night, during dinner, takeout from some Italian restaurant that had been helicoptered in because apparently Mafia bosses didn't eat canned soup, Sophia caught Lorenzo's eye across the room. He frowned, reading something in her expression. Mouthed, You okay? Sophia glanced at Vincenzo, who was watching them both with those cold, calculating eyes. She wanted to scream the truth. Wanted to tell Lorenzo that his right-hand man was planning something terrible. That the ambush had come from inside. That she'd heard things, dangerous things. But Vincenzo's warning echoed in her mind. And she was trapped in this cabin with a killer who thought she knew too much. So Sophia did the only thing she could. She lied. "I'm fine," she mouthed back. Lorenzo didn't look convinced, but Vincenzo was already calling him away for another private meeting. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, Sophia watched the two men disappear into the back room, and she wondered which of them would emerge alive. Because one thing was becoming crystal clear: someone in this cabin was planning a coup. And Sophia was caught right in the middle of it. The infection hit on the third night. Sophia woke to the sound of someone coughing, harsh, wet, desperate. She grabbed her medical kit and rushed to the living room. Lorenzo was on the couch, his face flushed with fever, body shaking with chills. The guards stood around him, helpless and panicked. "Out," Sophia ordered, dropping to her knees beside him. "Everyone out.
Now."
But the boss needs medical attention, not an audience.
Out.
They obeyed, and suddenly the room was quiet except for Lorenzo's labored breathing. Sophia checked his temperature. 104. The shoulder wound had gotten infected despite her care. The stress, the lack of rest, the constant movement had compromised his healing. "Lorenzo," she said firmly, "I need you to listen to me. You have a serious infection. If we don't get this under control—" "I'm fine," he rasped, trying to sit up. Sophia pushed him back down. "You are absolutely not fine. You're burning up, and if I'm right, you're going septic. So you're going to lie still and let me save your life." Again. For the first time since his men had arrived, Lorenzo didn't argue. Sophia worked through the night for antibiotics, cold compresses, constant monitoring. She cleaned the wound again, draining the infection, applying fresh dressings. Lorenzo drifted in and out of consciousness, mumbling fragments that made no sense. Around 3 a.m., his eyes opened, clearer than before. "You're still here," he said, voice hoarse. "Where else would I be? Most people run from me eventually." Sophia wrung out a cool cloth, pressing it to his forehead. "I'm not most people. We've established this." A ghost of a smile touched his lips.
No.
"You're really not." She sat back, studying him in the dim light. Without the armor of command, without the soldiers bowing and scraping, he looked younger, more human. "Why did you do it?" Lorenzo asked suddenly. "Do what?" "Save me." That first night, his dark eyes were serious. "You saw the guns, the money. You knew I was dangerous, but you brought me here anyway." Sophia was quiet for a moment, considering. "Because that's who I am. I don't leave people to die. Not if I can help them. Even monsters." "Are you a monster?" Lorenzo laughed, bitter. "You know what I am, what I do, the things I've ordered, the people I've—" He stopped, jaw clenched. "I know you're a crime boss," Sophia said bluntly. "I know you've done terrible things. But I also know you're a human being with bullet holes in you, and that's enough for me right now." Lorenzo stared at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. "You look at me like I'm just a man," he said softly. "Nobody's done that in years. What do they usually look at you like? A weapon, a threat, something to fear or use." His eyes held hers. "But you look at me like I'm your patient, like I'm just someone who needs help." "You're someone who needs help," Sophia pointed out. "Medically speaking, you're a disaster." That surprised a real laugh out of him, followed immediately by a wince of pain. "Don't make me laugh," he groaned. "It hurts. Then stop being stubborn and rest." But Lorenzo didn't rest.
Instead, he talked.
Through the long hours of the night, as Sophia monitored his vitals and changed his bandages, Lorenzo Vitali told her things. Not everything. She suspected he still kept his darkest secrets close. But enough. About growing up in his father's shadow. About the first time he'd had to make an impossible choice. About the weight of commanding hundreds of men who would kill or die on his word. "My father used to say that power is a cage," Lorenzo said, staring at the ceiling. The higher you climb, the smaller your world becomes. Until everyone around you wants something from you. Protection, money, orders,
Fear.
but never just you. Sophia adjusted his foredrip. Is that why you're trying to go legitimate? Marcus mentioned something about it. Lorenzo's expression hardened. Marcus talks too much. He's loyal to you. Loyalty and discretion aren't the same thing, but Lorenzo sighed, some of the tension leaving his shoulders.
Yes.
I want out. Or at least, I want options that don't involve prison or early graves. But the old guard, he trailed off. They don't want change, Sophia finished. Change means uncertainty. Uncertainty means vulnerability. And vultures circle vulnerable prey. Like Vincenzo. Lorenzo's eyes sharpened. What about Vincenzo? Sophia hesitated. This was dangerous territory. But if she didn't warn him. He's been watching me, asking questions. He doesn't trust me. He doesn't trust anyone. No, this is different. Sophia met his gaze. He thinks I'm a threat.
To you.
To the organization. And I think she swallowed hard. I think he's planning something. Lorenzo was quiet for a long moment. You're perceptive, so you know. I suspect his voice was heavy. But suspicion isn't proof. And in my world, accusations without evidence start wars. He reached out, his hand finding hers. Stay close to Marcus. Don't go anywhere without him. And if Vincenzo approaches you alone again, you tell me immediately. His hand was warm, grip strong despite the fever. Sophia felt her pulse quicken. Okay, she whispered. They sat like that, hands linked, until Lorenzo's eyes drifted closed again. Over the next 2 days, a routine developed. Sophia treated Lorenzo's infection with ruthless efficiency, forcing him to rest even when he protested. She changed his bandages, monitored his fever, and told him exactly what she thought of his self-destructive behavior. You're the worst patient I've ever had, she informed him on the 4th morning. That's because I have an empire to run. You had an empire to run. Right now, you have antibiotics to take and sleep to catch up on. Lorenzo raised an eyebrow. Has anyone ever told you that you're bossy? Has anyone ever told you that you're stubborn? Frequently. Usually right before I have them killed. Sophia didn't even blink. Then I guess I'm lucky you like me. Lorenzo's expression softened.
Yes.
I suppose you are. The others noticed the change. The way Lorenzo listened when Sophia spoke. The way she could walk into meetings and interrupt him, something no one else dared to do. The way they talked in low voices during the long nights, her checking his wounds while he conducted business. Marcus called it the doctor effect. Vincenzo called it something else entirely. She has too much influence. Sophia overheard him telling another lieutenant. He's getting soft. Distracted. But Lorenzo wasn't soft. He was healing. By the 6th day, his fever had broken. The infection was under control. He could stand without swaying, walk without help. And when he looked at Sophia, there was something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Something warm and dangerous and terrifying. Thank you, he said one evening, when they were alone. For taking care of me. For not running. For he paused. For seeing me. Sophia's breath caught. Lorenzo. I know. I know what I am. What I can never give you. But I want you to know. He stepped closer, and Sophia's heart hammered. In another life, if I were just a man, and you were just a woman. He didn't finish. He didn't have to. The moment hung between them, charged and impossible. Then Marcus burst in. Boss, we got a problem. The south perimeter just went dark. No response from any of the guards. Lorenzo's expression shifted instantly, from the man to the monster. Battle stations, he ordered.
Now.
The cabin exploded into motion. Men grabbed weapons, radios crackled, orders were shouted. And Sophia realized with cold clarity that their quiet nights were over. Someone was coming. The perimeter alarm turned out to be a false threat. A fallen tree had taken down the communication lines. Nothing more. But the incident changed everything. Lorenzo was done playing wounded, done resting, done being protected. Within hours, he'd reasserted complete command. The man who'd been feverish and weak was gone, replaced by the crime boss who'd built an empire on fear and respect. Sophia watched the transformation with mixed feelings. He moved through the cabin like a general reviewing his troops, inspecting defenses, questioning reports, making decisions with cold precision. The men snapped to attention when he passed. Even Vincenzo seemed more subdued, more careful. Lorenzo Vitali was back in control. But not everyone was happy about how he'd gotten there. Sophia felt the shift in how the men looked at her. Before, she'd been the doctor. Necessary, tolerated. Now she was something else. Something that made them uncomfortable. She heard whispers when she passed. Saw the hostile glances. Felt the weight of resentment following her through the cabin. The boss is different, one guard muttered to another, not quite quietly enough.
Softer.
He never used to hesitate before. It's her influence. She's in his head. Women don't belong in our world. They make men weak. Sophia pretended not to hear, but the words stung anyway. On the 8th day, the storm finally broke. Sunlight streamed through the windows for the first time in over a week. The roads were still blocked, but they were clearing them. Huge SUVs with plows, cutting paths through 6 feet of snow. Sophia stood at the window, staring at the brightness, and made a decision. She was leaving. Lorenzo was healed. The infection was gone. He didn't need her anymore. And every day she stayed made her more of a target, from Vincenzo, from the resentful soldiers, from whoever had tried to kill Lorenzo in the first place. She waited until Lorenzo was in a meeting, then grabbed her coat and medical bag. Marcus intercepted her at the door. "Where are you going, Doc?"
To my car.
"I need to check on some supplies." It was a weak lie, and Marcus saw right through it. But after a moment, he nodded. "I'll escort you." They walked to the clearing where her Jeep had been buried under snow. 2 guards had already dug it out, the old vehicle looking pathetic next to the fleet of black SUVs. Sophia's heart sank. All 4 tires were flat, slashed by the look of them. The hood was open, and when she looked inside, key components of the engine were missing. Spark plugs.
Distributo capítulo.
Battery cables. What? Sophia's voice shook. What happened? Marcus's expression was grim. Security protocol. Any vehicle that could be used to leave the perimeter gets disabled. I can't risk someone stealing it, using it to breach our defenses. Security protocol? Sophia's voice rose. This is my car. I'm not a prisoner. Boss's orders document. I'm sorry.
Sorry?
Sophia whirled on him. You're all sorry, but you've destroyed my property, trapped me here, and... Is there a problem? Lorenzo's voice cut through her anger like ice water. He stood at the cabin's edge, arms crossed, watching them with unreadable eyes. Sophia marched up to him, fury overriding caution. Yes, there's a problem. Your men sabotaged my car. I gave that order. The words hit her like a slap. You?
Why?
Because you were going to leave. Lorenzo's tone was matter-of-fact. And you can't. Not yet. I'm not your prisoner.
No.
You're under my protection. There's a difference. Is there? Sophia gestured at her ruined Jeep. Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly the same. Lorenzo moved closer, and Sophia saw something dangerous flash in his eyes. Not anger. Something more complicated. Walk with me, he said quietly. It wasn't a request. They walked to the edge of the clearing, away from the guards and their watching eyes. Lorenzo stopped at the tree line, staring out at the snowy forest. Do you know why some of my men resent you? He asked. Because I'm an outsider, a civilian in their world. No, Lorenzo turned to face her. Because you have power over me. Real power. The kind they don't understand. Sophia blinked. I don't have any power over you. You saved my life. Twice now, his voice was soft but intense. You're the only person in this cabin who doesn't fear me, who speaks to me like I'm human. And they see how I listen when you talk. How I've changed since you started treating me. He stepped closer. They fear what they don't control. And you, Dr. Carter, scare them more than any rival gang. Sophia's breath caught. Lorenzo, I sabotaged your car because the moment you leave this property, you're a target. Not just from my enemies. From my own men who see you as a weakness to exploit. His eyes were dark, serious. Vincenzo's already making moves. Testing loyalties. Building alliances. If you leave now, unprotected, I give you 12 hours before someone makes you disappear. The word sent ice through Sophia's veins. You're saying your own soldiers would kill me. Not the loyal ones. But loyalty is. Complicated right now. Lorenzo's jaw clenched. Someone betrayed me. Someone close. Until I know who, everyone's a suspect. And you, your leverage. A way to hurt me. I'm just a paramedic. No, Lorenzo's hand came up, cupping her cheek with surprising gentleness. You're the woman who saved my life. The woman who made me question everything I've built. The woman who... He stopped himself, pulling back. You're important, whether you want to be or not. Sophia's heart hammered. This is insane. This is my world. I warned you, but his expression softened. I know you want to go back to your normal life. I want that for you too. But right now, the safest place for you is by my side, where I can protect you. And if I refuse, then I'll have Marcus physically restrain you and lock you in your room. Because I am not letting you die for the crime of showing me mercy. The word should have terrified her, should have made her fight harder to escape. But instead, Sophia saw the truth in his eyes. The genuine fear, the desperate need to keep her safe. You care, she realized.
About me.
Not just as someone who saved you, but... Don't. Lorenzo's voice turned harsh. Don't make this into something it can't be. You're under my protection because it's the right thing to do. Nothing more. But his eyes told a different story. Sophia took a shaky breath.
Fine. I'll stay.
But not because you ordered it. Because I choose to. Something flickered across Lorenzo's face. Relief, maybe. Or something deeper. Thank you, he said quietly. They walked back to the cabin in silence. But everything had changed. Sophia understood now. She wasn't just a bystander caught in his world. She was part of his survival. Part of his strength. Part of whatever came next. And as Vincenzo watched them return, his cold eyes calculating, Sophia realized something else. She'd crossed a line. Chosen a side. And in Lorenzo's world, there was no going back. That night, as she sat in the living room pretending to read, Lorenzo appeared at her side. I need you to promise me something, he said. What? If something happens, if things go wrong, you run. Don't try to help. Don't try to save me. Just run and don't look back. Sophia looked up at him. I can't promise that, Sophia. I don't run from people who need me. Not even dangerous mob bosses with death wishes. She held his gaze. You're stuck with me, Lorenzo. For better or worse. For a long moment, he just stared at her. Then, so quietly she almost missed it. God help us both. Outside, shadows moved through the trees. Inside, conspiracies took shape. And Sophia Carter, who'd only wanted to save a stranger's life, found herself at the center of a war she was only beginning to understand. The attack came at 2 a.m. Sophia woke to gunfire, sharp cracks that shattered the night silence. She bolted upright, heart hammering, as explosions rocked the cabin. The door to her room crashed open. Marcus stood there, weapon drawn, face grim. Get up. We're under attack.
What?
Who? No time. Move. Sophia grabbed her medical bag by instinct and followed Marcus into chaos. The cabin was filled with smoke and shouting. Men rushed past carrying weapons. Muzzle flashes lit the windows like lightning. Lorenzo was in the command center, barking orders into a radio. Blood ran down his arm, a fresh wound, not the old ones. South and west flanks are compromised, someone shouted. They're pushing through. Fall back to the secondary positions, Lorenzo commanded. Protect the... A window exploded inward. Glass sprayed everywhere. Men dove for cover as bullets tore through the walls. Lorenzo's eyes found Sophia. Get her out of here. I'm not leaving, Sophia shouted back. That's not a request. But there was no time to argue. A door burst open and 3 men in tactical gear stormed in, not Lorenzo's men. Their weapons swung toward Lorenzo. Marcus fired first. The lead attacker went down. The others returned fire, and suddenly the cabin was a war zone. Sophia dropped behind the couch as bullets chewed through furniture. She saw one of Lorenzo's guards fall, clutching his stomach. Saw another go down with a headshot. We can't hold this position, Marcus yelled. Boss, we need to evacuate. Lorenzo fired his pistol with cold precision, dropping another attacker. Where's Vincenzo? Haven't seen him since the attack started. Lorenzo's expression turned murderous. Because he's the one leading it. The realization hit Sophia like a physical blow. This wasn't an outside attack. This was the coup. The garage. Lorenzo ordered. Move. They fought their way through the cabin. Sophia stayed low, following Marcus and Lorenzo as they cleared each room. Bodies littered the floor, Lorenzo's loyal men, dead or dying. The betrayal ran deeper than she'd thought. They burst into the garage where the SUVs were parked. Lorenzo's bulletproof vehicle sat in the center, engine already running. Someone had prepared for this. Get in. Lorenzo shoved Sophia toward the passenger side. Marcus, you're driving? Marcus stumbled, a red bloom spreading across his chest. He'd been shot from behind. No. Sophia caught him as he fell. Marcus. Go. Marcus gasped, blood on his lips. Protect the boss. Go. Sophia looked up at Lorenzo, stricken. He stood frozen for one terrible second, then grabbed her arm. I'll drive.
Get in. Now.
They threw themselves into the SUV. Lorenzo gunned the engine as bullets pinged off the armored exterior. The garage door exploded outward, and they burst into the night. The scene outside was apocalyptic. Fires burned across the clearing. Bodies lay in the snow. Lorenzo's convoy was under siege, SUVs burning, loyal soldiers fighting desperately against overwhelming numbers. Hold on. Lorenzo swerved around a burning vehicle, accelerating hard. Gunfire erupted from all sides. The bulletproof glass spiderwebbed but held. Lorenzo drove like a man possessed, weaving through obstacles, crashing through barricades. They were almost clear when an RPG streaked across their path. Lorenzo yanked the wheel hard. The SUV tilted on 2 wheels, nearly rolling. When it crashed back down, Sophia's head slammed against the window. Stars exploded in her vision. When her sight cleared, she saw blood. Lorenzo's blood, pouring from a wound in his side where shrapnel had pierced through a gap in the door. Lorenzo.
I've fine.
Keep your head down. But he wasn't fine. Sophia could see him struggling to stay conscious, one hand pressed against his side, the other white-knuckled on the wheel. They crashed through the final perimeter and hit the open road. Lorenzo pushed the accelerator to the floor, putting distance between them and the burning compound. 5 miles out, he finally pulled over, the SUV skidding to a stop in deep snow. Lorenzo. Sophia's voice shook. He slumped over the wheel, breathing hard.
I'm okay.
Just. Need a minute. You're bleeding everywhere. Sophia scrambled into the back seat, pulling her medical kit with her. Get back here.
Now.
Lorenzo crawled into the back, collapsing across the seat. Sophia cut away his shirt with shaking hands. The wound was bad. A piece of metal embedded in his side, just below the ribs. Blood pulsed with each heartbeat. This is going to hurt, Sophia warned. Do it. She worked with trembling hands, extracting the shrapnel, packing the wound, applying pressure. The back seat became an operating room again, just like that first night. But this time felt different. More desperate. More personal. You're doing great, Lorenzo murmured, watching her face. Steady hands. My hands are shaking. I don't see it. Sophia looked up, meeting his eyes. Even bleeding out, even betrayed and hunted, he looked at her with such complete trust that it made her chest ache. Why did you come back for me? She asked quietly. In the cabin. You could have escaped alone. Why risk it? Lorenzo's hand found hers, bloody fingers intertwining. Because I'm not leaving you behind. Not ever. Lorenzo. If I die tonight, he said, voice rough, don't call a priest.
Call you.
The words hung between them, weighted with everything unsaid. You're not dying tonight, Sophia said fiercely. I didn't save you twice just to lose you now. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Stubborn.
You taught me that.
She finished bandaging him, then sat back, exhausted and terrified. Outside, snow fell softly, peaceful and utterly at odds with the violence they'd just escaped. What do we do now? Sophia asked. Lorenzo struggled to sit up, wincing. We run. Vincenzo has the compound, most of my soldiers, access to all my resources. He'll be hunting us. How many people can we trust? Right now. Lorenzo's smile was bitter.
2.
You and me. Sophia looked at him, this dangerous man who'd somehow become her entire world. Then I guess we'll have to be enough. Lorenzo reached out, cupping her face with his blood-stained hand. For one breathless moment, Sophia thought he might kiss her. Instead, he pressed his forehead to hers. Thank you, he whispered, for everything. Then he pulled away, all business again. We need to move. There's a safe house about 60 miles from here. If we can make it there. Headlights appeared in the rearview mirror. Multiple vehicles, closing fast. They found us, Sophia breathed. Lorenzo climbed painfully into the driver's seat. Then we run faster. He gunned the engine, and they disappeared into the snowy night. 2 people against an army, bound by blood and bullets and something neither dared to name. Behind them, Vincenzo's forces gave chase. And ahead, in the darkness, an uncertain future waited. They lost the pursuit vehicles in a maze of mountain back roads, but Lorenzo's condition was deteriorating fast. There, he gasped, pointing to a dark shape barely visible through the trees. Old Chapel. Used to be a border crossing point during Prohibition. It's abandoned now. Sophia guided the SUV off-road, branches scraping against the sides. The chapel emerged from the snow, a small stone building with a crooked cross, windows dark and empty. Lorenzo could barely walk. Sophia half-carried him inside, kicking open the warped wooden door. The interior was freezing and musty, but at least it was shelter. Broken pews lay scattered across the floor. An altar stood at the far end, covered in dust and bird droppings. Moonlight streamed through holes in the roof. Sophia got Lorenzo onto a relatively intact pew, then rushed back to grab supplies from the SUV. Medical kit, blankets, bottles of water. She worked by flashlight, checking his wounds, changing blood-soaked bandages. You're losing too much blood, she said, voice tight with worry. You need a hospital.
Can't.
Vincenzo will have people watching every hospital within 200 miles. Lorenzo's breathing was labored. I'll be fine. Just need rest. You need a transfusion and probably surgery. Then I guess you'll have to work another miracle, Doc. Sophia wanted to scream at him, wanted to shake him for being so reckless with his life. Instead, she did what she did best. She worked. She stabilized him as best she could, then wrapped him in blankets. Started a small fire in the old stone fireplace, using broken pewwood for fuel. The flames cast dancing shadows across the chapel walls. Lorenzo watched her move, his dark eyes tracking every motion. You should have run, he said quietly. Back at the cabin. You should have gotten in a different vehicle and driven away. And leave you to bleed out? Not a chance. I'm not worth your life, Sophia. She whirled on him. That's not your decision to make. You don't understand what you've gotten into. What Vincenzo will do. I understand perfectly. Sophia sat beside him, exhausted. Your right-hand man betrayed you, started a coup, killed your loyal soldiers, and now he wants to finish the job. Lorenzo's laugh was bitter. It's more than that. Vincenzo didn't just betray me for power. He betrayed me because he trailed off, jaw clenched. Because why? Because I showed weakness. Lorenzo's voice was hard. Because I let a civilian save my life. Because I listened to a woman who knew nothing about my world. Because I started talking about going legitimate, about changing things. He looked away. To men like Vincenzo, that's unforgivable. Sophia felt cold seep through her that had nothing to do with the temperature. He did this because of me. He did this because he couldn't stand watching me become something different than what my father built. Lorenzo's eyes found hers. You were just the excuse. The proof that I was getting soft. The boss who let himself be saved by a nobody from nowhere. The word nobody hit like a slap. Sophia stood, anger flooding through her veins. A nobody? Is that what I am? That's what Vincenzo sees. I don't care what Vincenzo sees. Her voice echoed through the chapel. I care what you see. Because from where I'm standing, this nobody has saved your life 3 times now. This nobody pulled bullets out of you, fought off infection, and just helped you escape an ambush. So maybe, just maybe, being a nobody is worth more than being powerful. Lorenzo stared at her, speechless. But Sophia wasn't done. Weeks of fear and frustration poured out. You talk about power like it's everything, like it's what keeps you alive. But you know what actually kept you alive, Lorenzo? Compassion. Human decency. The fact that I couldn't drive past a dying man in the snow, no matter who he was. Tears stung her eyes. You're alive because of compassion, not power. Because I chose mercy over safety, kindness over logic. And if Vincenzo can't understand that, then maybe your whole world is built on the wrong foundation. The words hung in the cold air, raw and honest. Lorenzo didn't move.
Didn't speak.
Just stare at her with an expression Sophia couldn't read. The silence stretched until she couldn't bear it. Say something, she whispered. Lorenzo's voice, when it came, was rough with emotion. My father used to say that compassion was a luxury we couldn't afford. That in our world, kindness gets you killed. He paused. I believed him. For 35 years, I believed him. And now I'm sitting in a ruined chapel, bleeding from wounds given to me by my own men, because I dared to show gratitude to someone who saved my life. Lorenzo's eyes met hers, and Sophia saw something break open in them. Now I'm thinking my father was wrong about a lot of things. Sophia's breath caught. Lorenzo struggled to his feet, swaying but determined. He crossed to her, each step obviously painful. You called yourself a nobody, he said softly. But you're the only person in 20 years who's made me question everything I've built. The only one who's looked at me and seen something worth saving. His hand came up, trembling, to cup her cheek. You're not a nobody, Sophia Carter. You're the bravest person I've ever met. Tears spilled down Sophia's cheeks. Lorenzo. I don't have pretty words. I don't know how to be anything other than what I am. But I know this. His thumb brushed away her tears. Whatever happens next, however this ends, meeting you was the best thing that's ever happened to me. Even if it costs me everything. The confession hung between them, vulnerable and terrifying. Sophia's hand covered his. It won't cost you everything. We'll figure this out. Together. You still believe that? After everything? I have to. Because the alternative is unacceptable. Something shifted in Lorenzo's expression. The hard edges softened. The walls came down. And for the first time since she'd met him, Sophia saw the man beneath the monster. I don't deserve you, he whispered.
Probably not, Sophia agreed.
But you're stuck with me anyway. His lips quirked into a real smile, small, genuine, transformative. God help me, I think I'm okay with that. They stood there in the firelight, 2 people from impossible worlds, finding something unexpected in the ruins of everything they'd known. Outside, snow continued to fall. Somewhere in the darkness, Enemies hunted them. But in that moment, in that forgotten chapel, Sophia and Lorenzo found something that all his power and all her compassion couldn't have created alone. They found each other. "We should rest," Sophia said finally. "You need to heal. Will you stay close?" "Always." She settled beside him on the pew, his head resting against her shoulder. The fire crackled. The wind howled. And Lorenzo Vitali, who'd never trusted anyone, fell asleep to the steady rhythm of Sophia Carter's heartbeat. The woman who'd saved him in every way that mattered. They stayed in the chapel for 2 days. Sophia kept Lorenzo alive through sheer will and medical expertise. She cleaned his wounds, rationed their water, kept the fire burning. They spoke in whispers, sharing stories between bouts of sleep. Sophia learned about Lorenzo's childhood, his fears, his dreams of a different life. He learned about hers, the small-town girl who'd wanted to save people, never imagining she'd end up here. On the third morning, a phone buzzed. Sophia found it in the SUV, a burner phone hidden in the glove compartment. One message waited on the screen. "Boss, if you're alive, you need to see this. Tony." Below the message was a video link. Sophia brought it to Lorenzo. He watched it in silence, his face turning to stone. The video showed Vincenzo standing in front of Lorenzo's downtown headquarters, a luxury high-rise that served as the empire's nerve center. News cameras surrounded him. Reporters pressed forward with microphones. "It is with great sadness," Vincenzo said, his voice heavy with false grief, "that I confirm Lorenzo Vitali died 3 nights ago from injuries sustained in a tragic accident. As his second-in-command and lifelong friend, I will honor his legacy by assuming leadership of the Vitali organization." Sophia watched Lorenzo's knuckles turn white around the phone. Vincenzo continued, "Lorenzo was like a brother to me. His death is a tremendous loss. But the family must continue. Business must continue. And I pledge to lead us into a new era of prosperity and strength." The video ended. Lorenzo threw the phone against the chapel wall, where it shattered. "He's not even waiting," Lorenzo said, voice deadly quiet. "Declaring me dead before confirming the body. Taking everything I built while the smoke's still clearing. Can he do that? Just take over?" "If no one stops him," Lorenzo stood, wincing but steady. "He's betting my loyalists won't challenge him without proof I'm alive. That they'll fall in line rather than start a civil war. And will they?" Lorenzo's smile was sharp as a knife. "Vincenzo doesn't understand loyalty. Real loyalty. The kind that doesn't evaporate the second you show weakness." He turned to Sophia. "We need to get back to the city. Lorenzo, you can barely walk." "I don't need to walk. I need to fight." Over the next few hours, Lorenzo made calls on backup phones he'd hidden in the SUV. One by one, he reached out to his most trusted men. The ones who'd been away during the attack. The ones stationed in other cities. The ones Vincenzo hadn't gotten to yet. Sophia listened to him rebuild his empire from a ruined chapel, armed with nothing but a phone and the force of his will. "Tony, I need you to gather everyone you trust. No, I'm not dead, clearly. Yes, it was Vincenzo. Meet me at the warehouse on 5th and Main. Midnight. Carlo, how many men do you have?"
"Good."
"I need them armed and ready. We're taking back what's mine." "Dominic, I don't care what Vincenzo's offering you. You've known me 15 years. You think I'm the type to die quietly?" By evening they had a plan. 20 loyal soldiers, ready to move. A warehouse to use as a staging ground. Intelligence on Vincenzo's locations and movements. But Lorenzo was still weak. Sophia could see him struggling, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cold. The wounds were healing, but not fast enough. "You need more time," she said, checking his bandages again. "At least a few more days." "I don't have a few more days. Every hour Vincenzo sits in my chair is an hour he consolidates power, bribes my people, kills my allies." Lorenzo's jaw was set. "We move tonight or we don't move at all." Sophia wanted to argue, wanted to force him to rest. but she could see the determination in his eyes. Okay, she said quietly. Then we move tonight. Lorenzo looked at her sharply.
We? No.
Absolutely not. You can't do this without me. I can and I will. Sophia, I'm heading into a war zone.
Piepe will die.
I might die, his voice softened. I won't risk you. You don't get to make that choice. Like hell I don't. I didn't come this far to watch you walk into a suicide mission alone. Sophia's voice cracked. You need medical support. You need someone watching your back, who isn't holding a gun.
You need me.
I need you alive. Then don't die. Tears burned her eyes. Don't you dare die, Lorenzo Vitali. Because if you do, I'll never forgive you. Lorenzo stared at her, emotions warring across his face. You should run. Get in that SUV and drive until you hit a city where no one's heard my name. Start over. Forget you ever met me. Is that what you want? What I want doesn't matter. Sophia crossed to him, taking his face in her hands. What do you want, Lorenzo? His resistance crumbled. I want you safe. I want you happy. He closed his eyes. I want things I have no right to want. Then fight for them. Fight for us, Sophia's voice was fierce. Take back your empire. Survive this. Because I'm not going anywhere. If you die tonight, it won't be alone. Do you understand me? Lorenzo's eyes opened, and Sophia saw everything in them.
Fear. Hope.
Love that neither of them had dared to name. You're insane, he whispered. You make me insane. His forehead pressed against hers. If we do this, if you come with me, you stay in the vehicle. You don't get out unless I say so. You don't take risks. Promise me. I promise. I mean it, Sophia. You're the only good thing that's happened to me in 20 years. I won't watch you die because of my choices. Sophia kissed his forehead gently. Then we'll both survive. Together. They left the chapel as the sun set, painting the snow crimson. The SUV rumbled to life, carrying them toward the city, where Lorenzo had built his kingdom and Vincenzo had stolen it. Sophia watched Lorenzo's profile as he drove, this dangerous, complicated man who'd somehow become her entire world.
His jaw was set, his eyes hard.
The king returning to reclaim his throne. You're staring, Lorenzo said without looking at her. Just making sure you're real. Real? His lips quirked. What else would I be? A miracle. A disaster. I haven't decided yet. Both, probably. They drove in comfortable silence, the city lights appearing on the horizon. Behind them, the chapel stood empty once more, keeper of secrets and confessions. Ahead, a battle waited that would decide everything. Sophia? Lorenzo's voice was quiet. Yeah. Thank you. For not running. For staying. For he paused. For making me want to survive this. Sophia reached over, lacing her fingers through his. Then let's make sure you do. The city rose before them, glittering and dangerous, full of enemies and uncertain allies. Somewhere in those streets, Vincenzo sat in Lorenzo's office, wearing Lorenzo's crown, believing he'd won. He was about to learn otherwise. The king was coming home, and he was bringing his own miracle with him. The warehouse on 5th and Main was exactly where Lorenzo said it would be, a sprawling industrial building on the edge of the waterfront, windows dark, surrounded by shipping containers. 20 men waited inside. They straightened when Lorenzo walked in, their faces showing shock at his condition, then fierce loyalty. Boss, Tony said, a grizzled man in his 50s with a scar across his jaw. Thank God. We thought. I know what you thought. Vincenzo made sure everyone did. Lorenzo moved to the center of the room, and despite his injuries, despite everything, he commanded absolute attention. But I'm not dead, and I'm taking back what's mine.
He laid out the plan.
Vincenzo had consolidated his forces at the downtown headquarters, the penthouse floors where Lorenzo had run his empire. He felt safe there, surrounded by the soldiers who'd sided with him, protected by security he'd personally designed. It was also his biggest mistake. He's expecting a siege, Lorenzo said. A frontal assault with heavy weapons. That's how wars are usually fought in our world. So, what are we doing?
Tony asked.
Lorenzo's smile was cold. Something Vincenzo won't see coming. We're going to walk right through the front door. The plan was insane. Brilliant and insane. They'd split into 3 teams. Tony would create a diversion at the south entrance, loud, obvious, drawing Vincenzo's forces. A second team would breach through the parking garage. And Lorenzo, with a handful of his most trusted men, would enter through the main lobby using Sophia's ambulance as cover. An ambulance? Sophia stared at him. Where are we going to get? Already arranged, Lorenzo nodded to Tony, who pulled back a tarp to reveal a county EMS vehicle, stolen and repainted. You'll drive. They won't fire on an ambulance, not immediately. It'll buy us the few seconds we need. This is crazy, Sophia breathed. Yes, Lorenzo's eyes met hers. Which is why you don't have to do it. Say the word, and I'll have Tony drive you to the safe house. I'm driving the ambulance. Lorenzo looked like he wanted to argue, but he just nodded. Stay behind the vehicle once we're inside. Use it for cover. And if things go wrong, they won't, Sophia. They won't, she repeated firmly, because we're walking out of this together. That's the plan. At 11:30, they moved. Sophia drove the ambulance with white-knuckled hands, Lorenzo in the passenger seat, for armed men hidden in the back. The streets were empty, the city dark except for streetlights reflecting off wet pavement. The Vitali building rose ahead, 60 stories of glass and steel, the top floors lit up like a beacon. Second thoughts. Lorenzo asked quietly. Hundreds. You? Every second since I met you. Sophia glanced at him. Regrets? Not a single one. They approached the building. Security guards at the entrance spotted the ambulance, speaking urgently into radios. Sophia pulled right up to the main doors, hitting the siren. The wailing sound cut through the night. Heads turned. Guards came running. Now, Lorenzo said. They exploded from the ambulance. Lorenzo's men moved with military precision, taking down the guards before they could react. Sophia stayed behind the wheel, hands shaking, adrenaline singing through her veins. Then gunfire erupted from the upper floors. They made us, someone shouted. Bullets rained down from the windows. Sophia ducked, but kept her hand on the siren. The noise was chaos, confusion, exactly what they needed. Lorenzo and his men pushed into the lobby, moving fast. Sophia saw muzzle flashes, heard shouts and screams. More of Vincenzo's soldiers poured from the elevators, and suddenly the lobby was a battlefield. Sophia watched in horror as one of Lorenzo's men went down. Then another. They were outnumbered, outgunned, losing. She couldn't just sit here. Sophia threw the ambulance into drive and crashed through the glass doors into the lobby. The vehicle became a battering ram, scattering Vincenzo's men, providing cover for Lorenzo's team. Sophia, what are you doing? Lorenzo shouted. Helping. She kept the siren blaring, the lights flashing. The confusion was absolute. Vincenzo's men didn't know where to focus. On the vehicle, on Lorenzo, on the sounds of Tony's team breaching from the south. Lorenzo used the chaos. He advanced through the lobby like a force of nature, commanding his men with sharp orders, pushing forward despite his wounds. Blood seeped through his shirt, but he didn't slow down. They fought floor by floor, clearing each level. More loyalists appeared from nowhere. Men who'd been waiting for proof that Lorenzo lived, who'd refused to follow Vincenzo. The tide began to turn. Sophia stayed with the ambulance, moving it to create barriers, using the siren to signal positions. She saw Lorenzo drop a traitor with a single shot, saw him take command of a squad with nothing but his presence. This was Lorenzo Vitali at full power. Dangerous. Magnificent. Unstoppable. They reached the penthouse at midnight. Vincenzo waited in Lorenzo's old office, surrounded by his remaining loyalists. Maybe 30 men, armed and desperate. Lorenzo walked through the shattered doors, blood-soaked but unbowed. Sophia was right behind him, medical bag in hand, refusing to be anywhere else. The room went silent. Vincenzo stared at Lorenzo like he was seeing a ghost. You should be dead. I was. She brought me back. Lorenzo gestured to Sophia. 3 times now. You can't kill what she won't let die. Sophia stood beside him, this civilian paramedic from nowhere, and met Vincenzo's eyes without flinching. She saw him understand, then saw the moment he realized his mistake. He hadn't just underestimated Lorenzo. He'd underestimated what love could make people do. Surrender, Lorenzo said quietly. Drop your weapons. This is over. Over? Vincenzo laughed, brittle and desperate. You think you've won? You're bleeding out, supported by a civilian and a handful of soldiers. I have 30 men. Had 30 men, Tony corrected, walking in from the side entrance with a dozen soldiers behind him. Half of them switched sides once they saw the boss was alive. The rest are in custody. Vincenzo looked around wildly. His remaining loyalists were already lowering their weapons, seeing which way the wind had turned. In Lorenzo's world, power was everything, and power had just shifted definitively back to its rightful owner. It's over, old friend, Lorenzo said, and there was genuine sadness in his voice. You chose ambition over loyalty, chose your pride over brotherhood, and you lost. Vincenzo's hand moved toward his weapon. 3 guns instantly targeted him. Don't, Lorenzo warned. I don't want to kill you, but I will if you force my hand. For a long moment, Vincenzo stood frozen. Then slowly he raised his hands in surrender. The room exhaled. Lorenzo swayed, and Sophia was instantly at his side, supporting him. He leaned into her without shame, without pretense. I've got you, she whispered. I know. His men watched in stunned silence as their boss, the most feared crime lord on the East Coast, let a civilian hold him up. Let her check his wounds. Let her care for him in front of everyone. And instead of seeing weakness, they saw something else. They saw strength of a different kind. Tony, Lorenzo said, voice tired but firm. Take Vincenzo into custody. We'll deal with him properly, through family channels.
No executions.
No revenge killings. He looked around at all the assembled men. The old ways are over. We do things differently now.
Boss.
Tony looked confused. She taught me mercy, Lorenzo said simply, his eyes on Sophia. Time I started practicing it. The words rippled through the room. This wasn't just a change in leadership. This was a revolution. As dawn broke over the city, Lorenzo Vitali stood in his reclaimed office, Sophia Carter at his side, and began to rebuild his empire on a foundation his father never would have recognized. On a foundation of compassion, loyalty, and the fierce love of a woman who'd refused to let him die. 3 days after the coup was crushed, Lorenzo called a gathering. Every soldier who'd sided with Vincenzo, the ones who'd survived, who'd surrendered, who'd begged for mercy, stood in the warehouse on 5th and Main. Hands bound, heads bowed, waiting for judgment. In Lorenzo's world, betrayal meant death. Always had. It was the rule that kept empires intact, that prevented future challenges. Everyone knew it, expected it. Sophia stood beside Lorenzo as he surveyed the 50 men who'd tried to kill him. She could feel the tension radiating through the room, could see fear etched on every face. You know why you're here, Lorenzo said, his voice carrying across the silent space. You turned on me, followed Vincenzo's coup. Some of you pulled triggers. Some of you just stood aside and let it happen. He paused. In the old days, there'd be no question what comes next. The men flinched. Several were shaking. Tony stepped forward, weapon ready. The other loyalists waited for the order that would end 50 lives in blood and gunfire. Lorenzo looked at them for a long moment. Then he looked at Sophia. She met his eyes, saying nothing. This wasn't her choice to make. This was his world, his decision. But she didn't look away. didn't hide her feelings. Just let him see what she saw, a chance to be different, to choose something other than violence. Lorenzo turned back to the bound men. But things are different now. The room held its breath. You're alive because someone taught me that mercy isn't weakness. That compassion isn't something to be feared. His voice was firm, absolute. You betrayed me because you thought I was getting soft, that I'd lost my edge. Maybe I have, but I've gained something more valuable. He gestured to Sophia. Every eye in the room turned toward her. This woman pulled me from a wreck when she should have kept driving. Saved my life when the smart thing was to let me die. Stayed by my side when anyone with sense would have run. Lorenzo's voice softened. She gave me something I thought I'd lost years ago.
Hope.
The belief that we can be better than what we were raised to be. Silence. Absolute, stunned silence. So here's your judgment, Lorenzo continued. You're out. All of you. Out of the family, out of the organization. You'll leave this city and you won't come back. Cross me again, and there won't be a second chance. But today, he paused. Today you get to live. Because she taught me mercy. The shock rippled through the room. Men sagged with relief. Others stared in disbelief. This wasn't how things were done. This wasn't how the Vitali Empire worked. But it was how it worked now. Tony approached Lorenzo quietly. Boss, are you sure? Letting them go sets a dangerous precedent. I'm sure. Lorenzo's voice was iron. We're building something different here. Something that doesn't require rivers of blood to sustain it. He looked around at his loyalists. Anyone who can't accept that is free to leave too. No one moved. They just stared at their boss like they were seeing him for the first time. Maybe they were. The condemned men were released. Escorted to vehicles. Driven to the edge of the city with one-way tickets and stern warnings. And Lorenzo Vitali stood in his warehouse, watching them go, holding the hand of a small-town paramedic who'd changed everything. That evening, as snow began to fall over the city, the convoys departed. Sophia stood in the parking lot of her rebuilt cabin. They'd repaired the damage from the attack, replaced what was destroyed. Home again somehow. Black SUVs lined up in formation, engines rumbling. Hundreds of soldiers preparing to return to their normal posts, their normal lives. The crisis was over. The king had reclaimed his throne. Marcus, recovered from his injuries, walking with a new scar but alive, gave Sophia a respectful nod. You're good people. Document don't see much of that in our world. Take care of yourself, Marcus. You too. And Doc. He grinned. Thanks for keeping the boss alive. He's a pain, but he's our pain. The convoys rolled out one by one, headlights cutting through the falling snow. Sophia watched them disappear down the mountain road, taking the chaos and violence with them. Silence settled over the clearing. Her clearing.
Her home.
Almost. One vehicle remained. A sleek black SUV, engine idling, parked where her old Jeep used to sit. Lorenzo stood beside it, hands in his coat pockets, looking uncertain in a way she'd never seen. Not the Mafia boss. Not the wounded fugitive. Just a man, waiting. Sophia walked toward him slowly, her heart in her throat. You came back, she said. I said I would. Lorenzo's dark eyes searched hers. The question is whether you want me to stay. Your empire is back there. In the city. You have an organization to rebuild, business to run. All of that can happen without me standing in a boardroom every day. He stepped closer.
I'm restructuring.
Going legitimate like I always planned. Tony's handling the day-to-day. I'll be there when needed, but he paused. I don't want that life anymore. Not the way it was. What do you want? Lorenzo reached out, cupping her face with gentle hands. I want to wake up without wondering who's planning to kill me. I want to sit in a cabin by a fire without soldiers standing guard. I want. His voice dropped to a whisper. I want to be the man you see when you look at me. Not the monster I was. The man I could be. Tears burned Sophia's eyes. Lorenzo. You didn't just save my life, Sophia. You gave me one. A real one. One worth living. His forehead pressed against hers. I'm not asking you to join my world. I'm asking if I can stay in yours. Sophia's laugh was half-sob. You're asking if a crime boss can move into my remote cabin in the middle of nowhere? Former crime boss. Mostly, his smile was tentative, hopeful. I know it's crazy. I know I don't deserve it. But you make me want to try anyway. Sophia looked at him, this complicated, dangerous, surprisingly tender man who'd crashed into her life and changed everything. Who'd shown her that people could transform, that mercy was strength, that love could bloom even in the darkest soil. Stay, she whispered. Lorenzo's eyes closed, relief washing over his features.
Yeah. Stay.
Heal. Figure out who you are when you're not running an empire, Sophia smiled through her tears. I'll be here. For all of it. He kissed her then, soft and deep and full of promise. A kiss that tasted like snow and hope and second chances. When they pulled apart, Sophia saw her future in his eyes. Not easy. Probably complicated. Definitely unconventional. But real.
And honest.
And theirs. Lorenzo opened the SUV door, pulling out a duffel bag. I should warn you, I'm a terrible houseguest. I drink expensive coffee, I have nightmares, and I've never cooked a meal in my life. Good thing you moved in with a paramedic then. They walked into the cabin together. Behind them, the last SUV's taillights disappeared into the snowy forest. Inside, Sophia built a fire while Lorenzo explored the small space that would become their sanctuary. No soldiers.
No guns.
No empire weighing him down. Just a man and a woman, and the quiet promise of tomorrow. Thank you, Lorenzo said softly, watching the flames dance. For not letting me die. For not giving up on me. For showing me there was another way. Sophia took his hand, lacing their fingers together. Thank you for being worth saving. Outside, snow blanketed the mountains in pristine white. Inside, two people from impossible worlds built something new from the ruins of everything they'd been. Not the Mafia boss she'd found bleeding in the snow. Not the paramedic who'd driven past danger to save a stranger. But the man she'd rebuilt with her own hands. And the woman who'd shown him what it meant to truly live.